I need to tell you something about Virgo energy that almost no one talks about. And once you understand this, you'll never see this sign the same way again. You know how everyone says Virgos are perfectionists, how they're critical, nitpicky, obsessed with details to the point of exhaustion. I want you to forget everything you think you know about that narrative. Because what I'm about to share with you goes so much deeper than surface-level personality traits. This is about understanding one of the most profound healing frequencies in the entire Zodiac, and why Virgo holds a key that most people are completely blind to. Here's what I've noticed, and I want you to check in with yourself as I say this. Have you ever been around someone with strong Virgo energy and felt this strange combination of being seen and being judged at the same time? Like they're looking at you with this surgical precision, noticing things about you that you didn't even notice about yourself. And here's the thing that most people get wrong. They think that noticing, that attention to detail, is about judgment. But what if I told you it's actually about love? What if I told you that Virgo's so-called criticism is one of the purest forms of care that exists in the Zodiac? Let me take you somewhere specific. August 23rd to September 22nd. Every single year, the sun moves through Virgo. But this isn't just a calendar date. This is the moment in the Zodiac where we transition from the heart's entered, expressive fire of Leo into something completely different. We move from the stage, from the spotlight, from the grand gesture, into the workshop, into the laboratory, into the place where real transformation happens, not through drama or declaration, but through the meticulous, patient work of refinement. And I need you to understand something crucial right now. Virgo sees and doesn't arrive by accident. It comes right after Leo, right after we've expressed ourselves, right after we've created and celebrated and shined. Virgo arrives to ask the question that no one wants to hear but everyone needs to answer. Now what? What are you going to do with all that creative energy? How are you going to make it useful? How are you going to serve something larger than your own ego? Does this land for you? Because if you have any Virgo placements, or if you've ever felt that pull toward improvement, toward making things better, toward fixing what's broken, you already know this frequency in your bones. Let me tell you what Virgo energy actually is. Stripped of all the superficial descriptions you've read in pop astrology, Virgo is the sign of purification, not perfection. Purification. There's a massive difference. And this is where everyone gets it wrong. Perfection implies an end state, a final destination where everything is flawless and complete. But purification is a process. It's the ongoing work of removing what doesn't serve, of clarifying what's essential, of distilling experience down to its most potent form. Think about this for a moment. Virgo is ruled by Mercury, the planet of communication and intellect. But unlike Gemini, the other Mercury-ruled sign that lives in the realm of ideas and concepts, Virgo brings Mercury down into the body, into the earth, into practical reality. This is embodied intelligence. This is the kind of knowing that comes not from reading about something, but from doing it with your hands, from feeling it in your nervous system, from testing it against the hard surface of the real world. And here's where it gets really interesting. Virgo is a mutable earth sign. Let that sink in. Earth energy is about stability, structure, the physical realm, but mutable energy is about adaptation, flexibility, change. So Virgo holds this incredible paradox. It's grounded and practical, but it's also constantly adjusting, constantly refining, constantly responding to new information. This is why Virgos can seem so restless, so never satisfied. They're not chasing some impossible standard of perfection. They're responding to the living, breathing reality in front of them. And that reality is always changing. I want you to think about the last time you felt exhausted by your own standards. The last time you looked at something you created, something you worked on, and immediately saw the flaws. All the ways it could be better. If you're nodding right now, if you're feeling that familiar tightness in your chest or that tension in your shoulders, you're touching Virgo energy. And I need you to understand that this isn't a curse. This is your gift trying to express itself through a world that doesn't understand it. Because here's what society tells us about this quality. It's too much. You're too critical. You need to relax. You need to lower your standards. You need to be okay with good enough. And every time you hear that message, something inside you contracts. Because you know at a soul level, that good enough isn't actually good enough. Not because you're arrogant or impossible to please, but because you can see the potential. You can see what something could become. You can see the gap between what is and what could be. And that gap is not a source of judgment. It's a source of possibility. Let me give you a concrete example of how this plays out. Imagine a Virgo watching someone they care about struggle with something. Maybe it's a project at work. Maybe it's a relationship pattern. Maybe it's a health issue. The Virgo notices details. They see the small things that are off. The tiny misalignments that are creating bigger problems. And what do? They point them out. They offer suggestions. They try to help by showing you exactly where the problem is and exactly how to fix it. And what happens? The other person feels criticized. They feel like they're not good enough. They feel like the Virgo is being harsh or judgmental or impossible to please. But here's what's actually happening. The Virgo is offering you their most precious resource, which is their attention. They're giving you the gift of their analytical mind, their problem-solving ability, their genuine desire to help you improve. They're saying, I see you struggling, and I care enough to help you find a better way. This is the tragedy of Virgo energy. The very thing they offer as love gets received as criticism. The very quality that makes them incredible healers and helpers gets interpreted as coldness or harshness. And over time, many Virgos learn to suppress this gift. They learn to stay quiet. They learn to watch people make mistakes without saying anything. Because they've been told too many times that their help isn't wanted, that their observations are too much, that they need to just let things be. But I want to tell you something. And this is especially important if you're a Virgo or if you love one. This suppression is killing the healer. When Virgo energy can't express itself through service, through improvement, through the meticulous work of making things better, it turns inward. It becomes self-criticism. It becomes anxiety. It becomes that relentless inner voice that says you're not doing enough. You're not good enough. You should be better. Work harder. Try more. Have you felt this? Have you noticed how the same precision you want to offer the world gets weaponized against yourself when you can't express it outward? This is the Virgo wound, and it's one of the most painful experiences in the Zodiac. Because it takes your greatest strength and turns it into your deepest source of suffering. Now let me take you deeper into why this happens. Because understanding the mechanism is the first step toward healing it. Virgo sits in the 6th house of the natural Zodiac wheel. The 6th house is the house of daily routines, health, service, and work. This is not the house of grand achievements or public recognition. This is the house of the everyday, the mundane, the repetitive tasks that no one notices but that keep everything running. And here's the profound truth that most people miss. The 6th house is where we learn that the sacred lives in the ordinary. That divinity expresses itself not through dramatic spiritual experiences, but through the simple act of showing up, day after day, and doing the work that needs to be done. Virgo understands this at a cellular level. Virgo knows that enlightenment isn't found on a mountaintop. It's found in washing the dishes with full presence. It's found in organizing your space so that your mind can be clear. It's found in taking care of your body so that your spirit has a healthy vessel to inhabit. This is why Virgo is associated with health and healing. Not because Virgos are necessarily healthier than other signs, but because they understand the connection between the physical and the spiritual. They understand that you cannot separate your mental state from your gut health. You cannot separate your emotional patterns from your daily habits. You cannot separate your spiritual growth from the practical choices you make every single day about how you eat, how you move, how you structure your time. And this brings us to one of the most misunderstood aspects of Virgo energy, the relationship with the body. Virgo is often described as the sign that's disconnected from the body, overly mental, living in the head. But this is completely backwards. Virgo is actually the sign that's most attuned to the body's signals, most aware of physical sensations, most sensitive to the subtle messages that the body is constantly sending. The problem is that this sensitivity can become overwhelming. When you can feel every little thing that's off in your body, when you notice every ache and pain and irregularity, it's easy to become anxious. It's easy to fall into hypochondria or health anxiety. But this isn't because Virgo is disconnected from the body. It's because Virgo is so connected that they feel everything, and they don't always know how to process that level of information. Think about it this way. Virgo's ruler Mercury governs the nervous system. The nervous system is the communication network of the body, constantly sending signals about what's happening internally and externally. When you have strong Virgo energy, your nervous system is often highly sensitive, highly responsive, picking up on subtle cues that other people miss entirely. This is an incredible gift when it's channeled properly. This is what makes Virgos such good healers, such good diagnosticians, such good problem solvers. They can sense what's wrong before it becomes obvious. They can feel the early warning signs that something needs attention. But when this sensitivity isn't understood or honored, it becomes a source of anxiety. The Virgo feels everything, notices everything, and then gets overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information their system is processing. And because we live in a culture that tells us to ignore our body's signals, to push through discomfort, to prioritize productivity over well-being, Virgo energy often gets trapped in a painful loop of noticing problems but not being able to fix them. Or worse, being told that the problems they're noticing aren't real. Let me share something with you that I've observed working with countless Virgo placements over the years. There's a specific pattern that shows up again and again. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Virgos often end up in caretaking roles. Not because they consciously choose them, but because they're the ones who notice what needs to be done. They're the ones who see that someone is struggling and step in to help. They're the ones who take on the invisible labor of keeping things organized, keeping things running, keeping things from falling apart. And here's the painful part. This labor is almost never acknowledged. Because it's invisible. Because it's in the details. Because it's in the small, everyday acts of service that no one notices until they stop happening. And over time, the Virgo starts to feel resentful. They start to feel taken for granted. They start to wonder why they're the only one who seems to care about getting things right, about maintaining standards, about actually following through on commitments. Does this resonate with you? Have you ever felt like you're the only one who notices when things are falling apart? Have you ever felt exhausted by the weight of being the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who always has to clean up everyone else's messes? This is the shadow side of Virgo energy, and it's crucial that we talk about it, because this is where the healing needs to happen. When Virgo energy becomes unbalanced, it manifests as martyrdom, as the belief that no one else can do things as well as you can, so you have to do everything yourself. As the conviction that if you don't take care of it, it won't get done right, and underneath all of that is a deep, often unconscious belief that your worth is tied to your usefulness. That you're only valuable if you're serving, if you're helping, if you're making yourself indispensable. And this is where we need to go deeper. Because this belief system, this equation of worth with usefulness, is not just a Virgo problem. It's a collective wound that Virgo energy is here to heal. But first it has to heal within itself. Let me explain what I mean by that. Virgo is the archetype of the sacred servant, not the slave, not the doormat, but the sacred servant. There's a massive difference. A slave serves out of obligation, out of fear, out of having no other choice. A doormat serves out of low self-worth, out of the belief that they don't deserve better. But a sacred servant serves out of devotion, out of the recognition that service, when it's aligned with your true nature, is not a burden. It's a form of worship. It's a way of participating in the divine order of things. And here's what most people don't understand about Virgo. When this energy is operating at its highest frequency, service doesn't deplete you. It fills you up. Because you're not serving to prove your worth. You're not serving to earn love or validation. You're serving because you've recognized that your unique gift, your particular way of seeing and organizing and improving, is needed in the world. And when you offer that gift freely, without attachment to outcome or recognition, something magical happens. You step into flow. You step into purpose. You step into the kind of deep satisfaction that comes from knowing you're doing exactly what you're meant to do. But getting to that place requires a fundamental shift in how Virgo relates to its own nature. It requires letting go of the belief that you have to earn your place here. It requires understanding that your worth is inherent, not conditional. It requires learning to discern between true service, which is life-giving, and martyrdom, which is soul-crushing. Let me give you a very specific example of what this looks like in practice. I worked with a client once, a Virgo sun with Virgo rising, who came to me completely burned out. She was a nurse, which is such a classic Virgo profession, and she was good at her job. Exceptional. Actually, her patients loved her. Her colleagues relied on her. But she was exhausted in a way that went beyond physical tiredness. She described it as a soul exhaustion, like something essential inside her had been worn down to nothing. And as we talked, a pattern emerged. She was the nurse who always stayed late, who always picked up extra shifts when someone called in sick, who always volunteered for the most difficult patients, the ones no one else wanted to deal with. And she did all of this with a kind of grim determination. A sense that this was just what you did if you were a good nurse, a good person, a good anything. But here's what she couldn't see until we really examined it. She wasn't actually serving from a place of genuine care anymore. She was serving from a place of fear. Fear that if she said no, if she set boundaries, if she admitted that she had limits, people would see her as selfish, as not good enough, as not a real healer. And so she kept pushing, kept giving, kept sacrificing herself on the altar of being useful, until there was almost nothing left. And I asked her a question that stopped her in her tracks. I said, if you collapsed tomorrow, if you couldn't work anymore, would you still believe you had value? Would you still believe you deserve to exist? To take up space, to receive care and love and attention? The silence that followed that question was devastating. Because she realized, in that moment, that she had built her entire identity on being useful, on being the one who could handle anything, on being indispensable. And underneath there was a terror that if she stopped performing that role, there would be nothing left. No one would want her. No one would need her. She would be disposable. This is the Virgo wound at its deepest level. And I need you to understand that if you have strong Virgo placements, or if you resonate with this energy, you have probably touched this wound at some point in your life. You have probably felt that fear that your worth is conditional, that you have to earn your place, that you're only as valuable as your last contribution. And the healing, the real healing, doesn't come from doing more. It doesn't come from being more perfect, more organized, more helpful. It comes from the radical act of stopping, of resting, of allowing yourself to be imperfect, to be messy, to be human, and discovering that you're still worthy, you're still loved, you're still enough. Now let me shift gears and talk about something that doesn't get nearly enough attention when people discuss Virgo energy, and that's the relationship between Virgo and intuition. Because there's this assumption in astrology that earth signs, and Virgo in particular, are not intuitive, that they're too logical, too analytical, too grounded in facts and data to access that subtle, non-rational knowing that we call intuition. But this is completely wrong, and it's wrong in a way that does a massive disservice to how Virgo actually operates. Virgo is incredibly intuitive. It's just that Virgo's intuition works differently than water sign intuition or fire sign intuition. Virgo's intuition is somatic. It's body-based. It's the kind of knowing that comes through physical sensation, through gut feelings, through the subtle signals that your nervous system picks up before your conscious mind has processed what's happening. Think about the phrase gut instinct. That's Virgo territory. That's the intelligence of the body. The wisdom that lives in your digestive system, in your solar plexus, in the part of you that knows something is off before you can articulate why. Virgo is ruled by Mercury. Yes, but Mercury in Virgo is not just mental. It's the mind-body connection. It's the recognition that your body is constantly giving you information. And if you learn to listen to it, if you learn to trust those subtle cues, you have access to a form of intelligence that's far more sophisticated than pure logic. I want you to think about a time when you knew something was wrong before you had any concrete evidence. Maybe you met someone and felt an immediate sense of unease, even though they seemed perfectly nice on the surface. Maybe you walked into a situation and felt your stomach tighten, felt that warning signal in your body that said get out, even though everything looked fine. That's somatic intuition. That's your body reading the environment, picking up on micro-expressions and energy signatures and subtle inconsistencies that your conscious mind hasn't registered yet. And Virgo is a master of this. Virgo notices the details that don't add up. Virgo feels the dissonance between what someone is saying and what their body language is communicating. Virgo picks up on the small signs that something is deteriorating, that a system is breaking down, that a pattern is about to shift. This is not cold analysis. This is embodied wisdom. This is the kind of knowing that comes from being deeply present in your physical form and trusting what it tells you. But here's where it gets tricky. Because we live in a culture that privileges mental knowing over somatic knowing. We're taught to trust data, facts, logical arguments. We're taught to override our body's signals if they don't make rational sense. And so Virgo, with all of its incredible somatic intelligence, often learns to doubt itself, learns to dismiss those gut feelings as anxiety or paranoia, learns to talk itself out of what it knows to be true because it can't prove it, can't justify it, can't make it make sense in a way that other people will accept. And this is tragic, because when Virgo learns to trust its somatic intuition, when it learns to honor those body-based signals without needing to rationalize them, it becomes an incredibly powerful force for healing and transformation. Because Virgo can sense what needs to shift before the crisis hits. Virgo can feel the early warning signs that something is out of alignment. Virgo can guide you toward the small adjustments that prevent the big breakdowns. This is why so many Virgos are drawn to healing modalities that work with the body. Massage therapy, acupuncture, herbalism, nutrition, physical therapy. These aren't random career choices. These are expressions of Virgo's deep understanding the body holds wisdom. That physical symptoms are messages. That healing happens not through bypassing the body but through listening to it, honoring it, working with it. And I want to talk about something specific here that I think is crucial for understanding Virgo's role in the collective right now. We are living in a time of massive disconnection from the body. We spend our days staring at screens, sitting in chairs, living in our heads. We're bombarded with information, with stimulation, with demands on our attention. And our bodies are screaming at us. They're sending us signals through pain, through illness, through exhaustion, through anxiety, and most of us have no idea how to listen. This is where Virgo energy is desperately needed. Not the shadow Virgo that obsesses over symptoms and falls into health anxiety, but the healed Virgo that understands the body as a communication system. The Virgo that can help you decode what your body is trying to tell you. The Virgo that can guide you back into relationship with your physical form, not through punishment or rigid control, but through gentle attention, through patient observation, through the kind of care that says I'm listening. I'm here. I want to understand what you need. Let me tell you about another pattern I see constantly with Virgo placements. And this one is particularly relevant right now. Virgo has this incredible capacity for discernment. Discernment is different from judgment. Judgment says this is good, this is bad, this is right, This is wrong. Judgment is binary, rigid, often harsh. But discernment is nuanced. Discernment says this serves me. This doesn't serve me. This is aligned with my path. This is a distraction. This is nourishing. This is depleting. Discernment is about clarity, not condemnation. And in a world that's constantly trying to sell you things, constantly trying to convince you that you need more, that you're not enough, that you should be different than you are, discernment is a revolutionary act. Virgo's ability to cut through the noise, to see what's essential and what's excess, to distinguish between what's truly valuable and what's just shiny packaging. This is a gift that the collective desperately needs right now. But here's what happens to many Virgos. Strange, right? They turn this discernment inward in a way that becomes destructive. Instead of using it to create clarity in their lives, they use it to pick themselves apart. They become hyper-aware of their own flaws, their own limitations, their own failures to meet some impossible standard. And this is where the healing work has to happen. Because Virgo's discernment is meant to be a tool for liberation, not a weapon for self-attack. When you can look at yourself with the same compassionate discernment that you would offer to someone you love, when you can notice what's not working without making it mean that you're fundamentally broken, when you can see areas for growth without collapsing into shame, that's when Virgo energy becomes truly powerful. That's when you can use your analytical mind not to tear yourself down, but to build yourself up, not to prove that you're not good enough, but to identify exactly what you need to thrive. And I want to be very specific about what this looks like, because I think there's a lot of confusion about self-improvement and personal development in spiritual communities. There's this idea that if you're truly evolved, if you're truly healed, you won't want to change anything about yourself. You'll just accept everything exactly as it is. And while acceptance is important, while self-compassion is crucial, this idea that growth and acceptance are opposites is fundamentally flawed. Virgo understands something that a lot of spiritual bypassing misses. You can accept yourself completely and still want to grow. You can love yourself exactly as you are and still work to become more of who you're meant to be. These aren't contradictions, they're complementary truths. And the key is in the energy behind the growth. Are you trying to fix yourself because you believe you're broken? Or are you refining yourself because you're committed to expressing your highest potential? That's the difference between Shadow Virgo and Healed Virgo. Shadow Virgo improves from a place of lack, from a belief that you're not enough as you are. Healed Virgo refines from a place of devotion, from a commitment to honoring the gift you've been given by taking care of it, developing it, offering it in its most potent form. Think about a musician who practices every day. Are they practicing because they hate how they sound? Or are they practicing because they love music so much that they want to be able to express it more fully, more beautifully, more skillfully? That's the energy of Healed Virgo. That's refinement as an act of love, not an act of self-rejection. And this brings me to something that I think is one of Virgo's most profound teachings. And it's about the relationship between humility and mastery. Virgo is often described as humble, sometimes to the point of self-effacement, and there's truth to that. Virgo doesn't need the spotlight. Virgo doesn't need recognition or applause. Virgo is content to work behind the scenes, to be the one who makes everything run smoothly without needing credit for it. But here's what people miss. Virgo's humility is not about thinking you're less than. It's about recognizing that you're part of something larger than yourself. It's about understanding that your gifts, your skills, your abilities, these aren't things you created out of nothing. They're things you've been given, things you've been entrusted with, and your job is to steward them well, to develop them, to use them in service of something meaningful. This is why Virgo is associated with craftsmanship, with mastery, with the kind of skill that comes from years of dedicated practice. Because Virgo understands that true mastery is not about ego. It's not about being better than other people. It's about being in right relationship with your craft, with your calling, with the work you're here to do. It's about showing up every day and doing the work, not because you're trying to prove something, But because the work itself is sacred, I want to take you somewhere that most astrology never goes when talking about Virgo. And it's about the relationship between Virgo energy and the concept of purity. Not purity in the moralistic sense. Not purity as in virginity or innocence. But purity as in essence. As in the distilled truth of something. As in what remains when everything unnecessary has been stripped away. Virgo is the alchemist of the Zodiac. And I need you to understand what that actually means. Because alchemy is not just about turning lead into gold. That's the metaphor. But the real work of alchemy is about purification. It's about taking raw material and refining it through a series of processes. Each one removing impurities. Each one bringing you closer to the essential nature of the substance you're working with. And this is exactly what Virgo does. Not just with external projects or systems, but with consciousness itself. When you have strong Virgo energy, you're constantly engaged in this process of refinement. You're constantly asking, what's essential here? What's the truth underneath all the decoration, all the story, all the justification? What remains when I strip away everything that's not absolutely necessary? And this process, when it's done with awareness, when it's done with compassion, is one of the most powerful forms of spiritual practice that exists. But here's where it gets really interesting. And this is something I want you to sit with for a moment. Virgo is often associated with anxiety, with worry, with that racing mind that can't stop analyzing and problem solving and trying to figure everything out. And yes, that's part of the shadow expression. But what if I told you that this mental activity, this constant processing, is actually Virgo's way of trying to create safety through understanding? Think about it. When you understand how something works, when you can see the patterns, when you can identify the variables and predict the outcomes, you feel more in control. You feel less vulnerable. And for Virgo, which is so sensitive to everything that's wrong or off or potentially dangerous, this understanding becomes a form of protection. If I can analyze it, if I can figure it out, if I can see all the ways it might go wrong, then I can prevent the disaster. I can fix the problem before it becomes unfixable. But here's the painful truth that Virgo has to learn. You cannot think your way to safety. You cannot analyze your way out of vulnerability. You cannot perfect your way into a life where nothing ever goes wrong. And this is the fundamental crisis that Virgo faces. Because everything in Virgo's nature is oriented toward control through understanding, toward safety through preparation, toward protection through perfection. And life, in its infinite wisdom and its infinite cruelty, keeps showing Virgo that this doesn't work. That no matter how much you prepare, no matter how carefully you plan, no matter how thoroughly we analyze, there will always be variables you didn't account for. There will always be chaos. There will always be uncertainty. And this is where the real transformation happens for Virgo. This is where the healing begins. Because when Virgo finally lets go of the belief that it can control everything through understanding, when it surrenders the need to have everything figured out, when it allows itself to be in the mystery, in the not knowing, in the messy, imperfect, unpredictable flow of life, something extraordinary happens. The anxiety doesn't go away completely, but it transforms. It becomes discernment. It becomes intuition. It becomes a finely tuned sensitivity that can navigate complexity without needing to control it. Let me tell you what this looks like in practice. Because I think this is where a lot of Virgos get stuck. There's this idea that healing means you won't feel anxious anymore. That if you do enough therapy, enough meditation, enough inner work, you'll reach this state where you're just calm and centered all the time. But that's not how it works. Especially for Virgo. Your nervous system is wired to be sensitive. Your awareness is designed to notice details. You're always going to pick up on more information than most people. And that's going to create a certain level of activation in your system. The healing is not about making that go away. The healing is about changing your relationship to it. It's about learning to feel the anxiety without believing everything it tells you. It's about noticing the worry without letting it drive your decisions. It's about acknowledging the fear without collapsing into it. And this is advanced work. This is the kind of emotional and spiritual maturity that takes years to develop, and it requires a fundamental shift in how you relate to your own inner experience. I want to talk about something specific that I see with Virgo placements all the time, and it's about the relationship between Virgo and time. Virgo is acutely aware of time in a way that other signs often aren't. Virgo feels the pressure of deadlines, the weight of commitments, the constant sense that there's not enough time to do everything that needs to be done. And this creates a particular kind of stress, a particular kind of urgency that can be exhausting. But here's what's really happening underneath that. Virgo is trying to make every moment count. Virgo is trying to use time efficiently, productively, meaningfully. And there's something beautiful about that. Something noble about the refusal to waste the precious resource of time. But it can also become a prison. Because when you're constantly focused on productivity, on efficiency, on making sure every moment is useful, you lose the ability to just be. You lose the ability to rest without feeling guilty. You lose the ability to enjoy something without wondering if you should be doing something more important. And this is one of Virgo's deepest lessons. Learning that rest is not a waste of time. Learning that pleasure is not frivolous. Learning that sometimes the most productive thing you can do is absolutely nothing. Because your nervous system needs to discharge. Your body needs to integrate. Your mind needs space to wander and dream and make connections that can't happen when you're in task mode. I've worked with so many Virgos who have completely forgotten how to play, who have lost touch with that part of themselves that can be spontaneous, that can be silly, that can do something just because it's fun, not because it serves a purpose. And when I ask them about this, when I ask them what they do for pleasure, for joy, for no reason other than it feels good, they often look at me like I'm speaking a foreign language, because everything in their life has become about function, about utility, about whether it's worth the time investment. And I want to say this very clearly. If you resonate with this, if you recognize yourself in this pattern, you are not broken. You are not doing it wrong. You are simply expressing an imbalanced version of a very powerful energy. And the rebalancing doesn't mean you have to become someone you're not. It doesn't mean you have to stop caring about quality or excellence or doing things well. It means you have to expand your definition of what's valuable. It means you have to include leisure and spontaneity in your understanding of what makes a life well lived. Now I want to talk about Virgo's relationship to other people, because this is where some of the most painful dynamics play out. Virgo sees potential in people. Virgo sees what someone could become if they just made these adjustments, if they just worked on these areas, if they just applied themselves in this way. And because Virgo cares, because Virgo genuinely wants to help, they offer this feedback. They point out the areas for improvement. They suggest ways to optimize, to refine, to get better results. And what happens? The other person feels criticized. They feel like they're not good enough as they are. They feel like Virgo is trying to change them, to fix them, to make them into something they're not. And Virgo is left feeling confused and hurt. Because from their perspective, they were offering help. They were sharing their gift of seeing clearly, of identifying problems, of knowing how to make things better. This is one of the most painful misunderstandings in astrology, and it happens over and over again in Virgo's relationships. And the healing here requires both sides to shift. Virgo needs to learn that not everyone wants to be improved. That sometimes people need to be accepted exactly as they are, flaws and all. That your job is not to fix everyone you care about. And the people in Virgo's life need to understand that Virgo's feedback is not rejection. It's not a statement that you're not good enough. It's an offering of attention, of care, of the belief that you're capable of more than you're currently expressing. But here's the deeper truth that I think is really important. Virgo's impulse to improve others is often a projection of their own inner critic. When you're constantly working on yourself, constantly trying to be better, constantly aware of your own shortcomings, strains, right? It's very easy to extend that same energy to the people around you. And this is where Virgo needs to do some serious inner work. Because the question is not whether other people need to improve. The question is, why do I need them to improve? What am I trying to fix in them that I'm actually trying to fix in myself? And when Virgo can sit with that question, when they can turn that analytical mind inward and really examine their own motivations, something shifts. Because often what's underneath the impulse to improve others is a deep discomfort with imperfection, a deep anxiety about things being out of control, a deep fear that if everything isn't optimized and refined and working perfectly, something bad will happen. And this brings us to one of Virgo's most profound spiritual lessons, which is about acceptance. Not the passive acceptance that says everything is fine and nothing needs to change, but the active acceptance that says, this is what is. This is the reality I'm working with. And from this place of clear seeing, from this place of acknowledging what's actually true rather than what I wish were true, I can make conscious choices about what to engage with and what to let go of. This is the difference between control and discernment. Control says, I need to make everything conform to my standards. Discernment says, I can see clearly what serves me and what doesn't, and I can make choices accordingly. Control is exhausting. Discernment is empowering. And the shift from one to the other is the journey that every Virgo is on, whether they know it or not. Let me tell you about the gift that Virgo offers to the collective, because I think this is where we need to end up. We are living in a time of massive overwhelm. Too much information. Too many choices. Too much noise. And in this environment, Virgo's ability to discern what's essential, to cut through the clutter, to identify what actually matters. This is not just useful, it's necessary for survival. Virgo teaches us that less is more. That quality matters more than quantity. That doing one thing with full attention and care is more valuable than doing 10 things halfway. That the small, consistent actions we take every day are more powerful than the grand gestures we make once in a while. These are not sexy teachings. These are not the kind of wisdom that goes viral on social media. But they are the teachings that actually change lives. And here's what I want you to understand if you have strong Virgo energy. Your gift is needed right now. Your ability to see what's not working and envision how it could work better. Your capacity to take complex problems and break them down into manageable steps. Your willingness to do the unglamorous work that no one else wants to do. This is medicine for a world that's drowning in chaos and confusion. But you have to offer this gift from a healed place. You have to offer it from a place of genuine service, not from a place of proving your worth. You have to offer it with boundaries, with discernment about where your energy is actually wanted and valued. You have to offer it while also taking care of yourself, while also honoring your own needs, while also remembering that you are a human being with limits, not a machine that can run indefinitely. And to everyone who loves a Virgo, who works with a Virgo, who is trying to understand this energy, please see the love underneath the criticism. Please recognize that when Virgo points out what's wrong, they're not saying you're not good enough. They're saying they care enough to help you be better. They're offering you their most precious resource, which is their attention, their analytical mind, their genuine desire to see you thrive. And maybe, just maybe, instead of getting defensive, instead of feeling attacked, you could say thank you. You could say, I appreciate that you see potential in me. I appreciate that you care enough to offer feedback. And then you can decide what to do with that feedback. You can take what serves you and leave the rest. But you can receive it as the gift it's meant to be, rather than the attack it's not. Because here's the truth that I want to leave you with. Virgo is not here to make you feel bad about yourself. Virgo is here to show you what's possible when you commit to excellence. When you honor the details. When you bring consciousness to the everyday moments that most people overlook. Virgo is here to remind you that the sacred lives in the ordinary. That divinity expresses itself through the simple act of doing something well. That there is profound beauty in precision and care and attention. And if you can receive that teaching, if you can let Virgo's energy inspire you rather than intimidate you, if you can see the healer underneath the critic, you will have access to one of the most powerful forces for transformation that exists in the zodiac.